Collin here with Laptop Entrepreneurs. Welcome to episode 8. We're going to continue on with the whole guest style kind of thing. Brought on a guest that actually met their Instagram DM. So, yes, you can build relationships through social media. And we are going to talk a little bit about digital marketing, entrepreneurial mindset. It's going to be a fun, free-flowing conversation. Let me introduce to you Lenny Rich. Lenny, what's going on?
How's it going, man? How are you, Collin?
Good stuff today, man. Just continuing the grind onto the weekend. So we're pretty excited about that. Would you like to tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. As Collin said, my name is Lenny Richardson. I live in Virginia, in Leesburg. Sort of got started in the digital marketing / entrepreneur landscape maybe about 2013, 2014. I mentioned it to Collin earlier, but got started with a sort of website called College Conqueror. Basically, it was designed to fill in the gaps that, at least I felt at the time, that school didn't really teach us. Things like finances, budgeting, time management, taxes, all that stuff. Started with that, then kind of went into owning a gym apparel store after I graduated, and then sort of got into real estate, which is what I partially do now, not as actively, but I still do that. And kind of mainly at this point, I sort of brand myself as a real estate advisor / digital marketing go-to guy, we'll call it.
Definitely. And I think right off the bat, I think that's a good value tip too, is you saw that there was a need for people that were looking to learn the things that they didn't feel like school necessarily taught them. And so I think that's part of that entrepreneurial mindset as well, is that being able to identify that there's a problem and being able to identify that a solution can be given with your unique set of skills. So going off of that, what do you think is like your most valuable skill as Lenny Richardson when you go in to talk to a client, potential client?
I would say for me, I think probably, I don't know if it's the most valuable skill, but it's the one that kind of comes to mind first. Sort of being able to, I'll call it reverse engineering a process, or kind of starting from the end and trying to go backwards and figure out how we get there in the most efficient way possible.
Absolutely. And I think I use the reverse engineering tactic all the time. It's so with that, like reverse engineering a situation, I mean, I'm sure you're handed, several problems from your clients within a day or so. And so what's like your technique as far as, because a lot on my Instagram page is a lot about, problem solution oriented, being able to figure out how can you fix the problems that arise and how to maintain calm within those situations. So with that, what's kind of your strategy for, dealing with multiple issues at a time, handling those in a good manner, and that kind of topic?
As far as handling, I would say multiple issues, at least for me, what I think works well is trying to figure out which problem is which problem is truly a big problem, and which one is, I don't want to say not a problem, but which one is sort of, I'll call it urgent versus non-urgent. Some problems are urgent and you kind of want to get to them as soon as possible. I feel like a lot of problems aren't that big of a deal, but maybe, for a business owner or for a client, in their head, it seems like a big deal.
Yeah, exactly.
So they kind of have this weird, and it makes sense if you're looking at it from their perspective. They're seeing an issue and they're kind of coming to you and saying, hey, I need this issue solved, immediately. And you kind of have to sit down with them and say, this is an issue, but this issue doesn't really matter now. If unattended, this issue probably wouldn't matter for another week or 2 weeks or a month. In their head, it's a big issue, but it might really just be a minor issue or a complete non-issue altogether.
Right. So you're setting realistic expectations for your clients from the get-go so that they understand where you're coming from.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, I think it's good to do that in general. For anyone listening that isn't quite in the entrepreneurship space yet, or maybe they're just starting out, it's that's one mistake I did a lot. It's one mistake I made a lot in real estate. You sort of want to let people know how things are likely to go,
Mm-hmm.
what some common issues might be that come up that, that are common, but they might not expect. And just work that out with them just so it doesn't catch them off guard, so they don't get too emotional. Cause I feel like emotions kind of in any business, it gets in the way. And that's sort of when, I don't know, bad situations start to
Right.
come up, situations that probably could have just been avoided by a simple conversation.
Definitely. No, I think that's super impactful. I actually was realizing that I got right into the podcast without going through the fluff in the beginning kind of thing, which I want to talk about that too, because we have something in common where we both went to an all-boy high school. And so I want to hear your perspective on that, and I'll share a little bit about my perspective on that, because I think that there's a lot of good value that, came out of at least my experience personally. So I'd like to hear about your experience as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I want to say that. Yeah, I mentioned to you before we started recording, but
Mm-hmm.
it is very rare. I know of no one else now
Mm-hmm.
besides you, or of course, besides people that went to my high school, that went to an all boys school. I feel like it's the most
Yeah.
rare trait in anyone ever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. All boys school. It's an interesting. I don't know. It's an interesting time, especially because it's in high school.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how deep you want to get into it, but I will say
D-
one thing that's interesting is the dynamic of being, I guess, in a situation where there are no girls
yeah.
versus being in a situation at least for me, when I graduated, where there's, no girls in your class.
Mm-hmm.
Very different dynamic as far as how guys, at least in my experience,
Yeah.
how they sort of act or how they behave.
Exactly. I was about to say the exact same thing, honestly, because I think it's true. Like, because you don't worry about. I mean, you're supposed to shower every day and stuff like that, but you're not as worried about like making sure your hair is super nice or wearing
Yeah.
cologne or like dressing super nice. Because it's like I'm just going to school with a bunch of boys and we're gonna be doing playing basketball at recess, so we don't have to care about sweating.
Yeah.
Um, like those kinds of things. I think I have a really good story about this. So I've been going to private school my entire life. And so right when I graduated high school, I was like, okay, there's no way I would go to an all boy college. There's no chance. So I picked Creighton out in Omaha, Nebraska. And I know that the good Lord upstairs was watching out for me when I realized that my floor was co-ed. It was 20 boys, 40 girls. And
Wow.
I was like, this is exactly why I went to an all boy high school, so that I could have this feeling right now where I'm like, finally, like, God's looking out for me. Because it was like the only co ed floor except one other one above us that was like an honors program. And so I was like, heck yeah, dude.
You really lucked out.
I lucked out big time. Yeah. It was a big shift though. Like, did you feel like it was a shift, going from, I mean, I guess you had like an all girls school next door
No,
or no?
yeah. So it was really weird. Like, so my school, we had Lower Marion that was technically like, it wasn't really officially our sister school,
Mm-hmm.
but it was kind of our sister school. But
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't that close to where my high school was.
Uh,
And so Lower Marion girls would just take a bus, like they had a school bus that would pick them up because we had a lot of like drama programs and like after school clubs. They would pick them up from their school and take them to our school, and they'd be in these events and programs and clubs. But they were all programs like drama and like some art programs and dance.
yeah.
None of which I was a part of.
Yeah.
So literally went through basically all of my high school life, like not really interacting with too many girls, which was,
Oh, I feel that. Yeah.
yeah, it's very interesting, and it made college it made college an experience. I'll put it that way.
Oh yeah. I 100% agree. It's funny that I feel like we have very similar minds. I think that's pretty interesting because I would say the same kind of things that you're saying as well. Just about the all boys school, entrepreneurial mindset. Because we talked about close friends as well before this about how like it's difficult for like some of our closest friends growing up and stuff like that to understand like why do we post on social media every day, or what are we trying to accomplish with our social media pages, or like what is this guy doing a pyramid scheme. Like I feel like those types of things always come up with this. So like, how do you combat, you know, I don't know if you have outside voices, external voices. How do you combat like a little bit of that negativity or however you view it? What's your way about going about that?
Now in the past, it would kind of get to me, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was, I don't think I've actually had too many people who just outright, they wouldn't so much call me a pyramid scheme or like a scam or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, at least as far as I can remember, I don't think I've ever had too many experiences like that. I think for me at least, what it came down to is the lack of support, which kind of bothered me. Because you put something out there and you expect that your friends and family might be super pumped for you,
Right?
and they don't, which is just like real quick
It
story.
hurts.
Yeah, like it hurts. Like real quick story. Like me personally, I value heavily the entrepreneurial mindset, the journey of it all.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. To me, it just seems like I respect people who do it because I feel like it's very difficult to get into, and
Mm-hmm.
I think, there's nothing wrong with like a 9 to 5 or a job, but I
Mm-hmm.
feel like with a job, there's almost like a guarantee behind it. Like once you get accepted,
Yeah.
you get the salary, and at least in my experience and from people I've met and people I've talked to, you can easily coast, and it's very hard to get fired unless you do something terribly, terribly wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So you can kind of you can get by with the bare minimum. Entrepreneurship, you can't do that. Like if you stop working or if you start to slack off or rest on your laurels, so to speak, it only takes one bad situation for everything to crumble. Yeah, exactly. So I always value the entrepreneurship thing. And I remember at one point I had a job at a law firm. I was doing marketing for a law firm, but it was a 9 to 5 in office job. And it was a great job. I loved the job. It kind of hurt my feelings, to be honest, because I remember I posted about it on Facebook, and I think I had like 81 likes and a ton of comments, people saying like congratulations. And then I remember, I think the year prior, I had opened up my fitness apparel store, and I think maybe like one person liked it. I think it was like my mom. And
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and I'm sure she probably didn't think about it too much. She probably just liked it because I posted it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of those situations where you get hurt by it almost.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but as far as dealing, so back then it would kind of affect me. Nowadays, I sort of understand that people don't think the same way, and I don't expect them to. So if I get any negativity, I more or less nowadays I just ignore.
Well, yeah, and I think you brought up a fantastic point too about how you had the 81 likes, tons of comments, engagement when, you had that one Facebook post, and then when you went down this entrepreneurial path, it was a little bit different from that. But I also think like, as we both graduate in college and stuff like that, they teach us to get into an aspect of like a 9 to 5 job. Like, my career counselor would tell me not to put my entrepreneurship stuff on there because it would scare companies away. And so
Wow.
that's what and it's like, that's crazy, right? You're like, I'm so proud of this. And like, I feel like if I can't be what I've done, then I don't want to go to a place with a 9 to 5 job or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes entrepreneurship so crazy is exactly that point is in a job, you have a fixed salary, but the way that in entrepreneurship it works is that there is no fixed salary. You could make like 10,000 a year. You could make 30,000 a year. You could make 100K a year. You could keep going on and on. It just depends on the work that you're willing to put into it. And so and I noticed that too. Like you have a baller. I mean, you got 615 Instagram posts. That's the definition of consistency. I see you post every day. And so what do you like, why are you so consistent? Like what makes you, like get up in the morning to be able to do this on a consistent everyday basis as well as take care of your clients?
As I don't have a very specific. I would say it probably just comes down to, I don't know. I try to think about what's at stake. I'll put it that way. I did this a while back when I did have that 9 to 5 job. I do journal, not as frequently as some people tend to advocate. I don't do it every single day. I usually do it every once in a while, like twice a month. It's probably not a lot, but I do it seldom, not as much as I should do it. But I sort of did like this exercise where I thought ahead like 5, 10, 15 years and thought about if I just did the same, if I repeated this year, what would happen? Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to lie, it kind of depressed me because I thought about it and figured, with this job, I'll get raises here and there, nothing super significant. I'm not a big flashy type of dude, so I don't care too much about having a lot of money. Mm-hmm. I like the stability to an extent. But basically the way I saw it was if I stay at this job, I'll kind of be unhappy just because it'll be the same year repeated virtually forever until like I die. I know that sounds really grim, but it's like until I die, this will be the same. That's
how
year,
I feel.
Pretty much. Mm-hmm. And I just know I know myself well enough to know that if I do something for too long, I'll get too comfortable with it. Like I'll adapt to it, and it'll be too hard to break away. Mm-hmm. So like for me, the motivation I think to post every day and to keep trying to work on the business and just keep growing overall comes from me sort of seeing a potential end game. And my end game is to, at least in my head, feel like I've accomplished something mm-hmm. big. And I don't know, the way I saw it was you can't do that at a 9-to-5. You have to do that as an entrepreneur.
Right.
So I don't know if that really answered the question, but if that makes sense at all.
Oh yeah, it does. Like you're saying that like you want to build something for yourself, and you kind of felt like with the 9-to-5 that it would be a little bit more difficult to really build upon your own like self-awareness, your self-growth versus where entrepreneurship, it's solely your responsibility kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And I think with that too is that, if it's like, yes, you had everything you make throughout the day. So like I have the choice right now at 2 p.m. to be doing a podcast. But ultimately I have a choice too. If I need a break, I can play video games or I can go to the gym at 2. Whereas like a 9-to-5, you don't really necessarily have that flexibility, which is I think where I was, where I really resonated with you was you just didn't, you felt like the 9-to-5, it was like in perpetuity where you're just every Monday through Friday, you're going into work doing the same thing over and over again for somebody else's dream, and that just didn't appeal to you.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah. And so since we're both in the digital marketing space, let's definitely dive deep into that. What's like, so I know number one thing, consistency, which I bet we can both agree on, but what are some other kind of attributes as far as editing your content, as far as when to post your content, looking at your analytics? What's kind of your viewpoint of digital marketing? And if we can narrow it down a little bit too, we can talk about that as well.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, as far as digital marketing goes, I would say in general, I would say the best thing to do is, first of all, I think marketing in general this is my definition of it, mm-hmm. is getting attention. So if mm-hmm. you're a personal brand, it's getting attention for your brand. If you're a business, it's getting attention for your business so that you can eventually, in most businesses at least, sell them product or service. And I think the best place to start is what will give me the most attention, or what will get me the most attention in a way that's not too divisive and will ultimately lead to me selling whatever it is I'm selling.
Yeah. So by the divisive meaning, like you're not just trying to sell right off the bat. Like, you talk a little bit more about what you mean by that?
Yeah. So I feel like there's people who sort of put things out there to be divisive in a negative way. And divisive isn't always bad, in my opinion. You can be divisive, and it's kind of like that whole, what's the saying? All publicity is good publicity.
Yep, exactly.
I think to some extent that's true. Mm-hmm. Because again, it's attention. So I feel like in most situations, if you say, a good example of this is Tekashi 6ix9ine, I think is a great example of divisiveness. Very colorful rapper. does things that in the rap community or in just general society might be considered negative, like telling on people, snitching, especially in a courtroom and on camera and everything else where everyone can clearly see him do it. He's very divisive. It works very well for him because it gets him so much attention that you'll listen to him if you hate him.
Yeah.
And you'll totally listen to him if you like him. And chances are, if he's funny enough, or he can probably change your mind because you're looking at him so much, he kind of just stays in your head. And you could be a person that hated him or had like no opinion of him, and he'll convert you to having a good opinion of him.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's an example of being divisive in a good way. I think there's divisive in a bad way where I can't think of a very specific example, but say you're a business who, I don't know, this is a very extreme example, but you sell products to kids and maybe you hate kids. Or it's a
right.
It
wouldn't make
example.
Sense. Yeah.
It wouldn't make sense, and it's divisive in a bad way because people will hate you and they just won't buy from you. But arguably, no one will buy from you because anyone that's found supporting you will also be hated. It's bad divisive, and it's an extreme example, but I feel like a lot of brands sort of teeter that fine line between putting things out there that shows their character, but doesn't come off as so off-putting that you get no sales or everyone runs away or everyone hates you, but also being just polarizing enough that it creates a conversation and gets you enough attention.
Exactly. Style and polarizing. I think that's a great way to look at producing content. Do you think that, so have you seen that Nike commercial? I just saw it was on during the playoffs where it was like the side-by-side screen of where they would have take like different video footage and it would kind of come into one. I don't know. I know I'm not describing it super well. But do you know what it was like a recent Nike commercial? Do you watch basketball at all?
No, not really.
Oh, really? Okay. I'll have to send you that afterwards. But I think that's a good example when you were talking about describing your character is that, yes, Nike sells athletic wear, but they could do a whole commercial that is more about their style and character and about current issues where it hits a little bit different. It hits that emotion. And so I think that's what you're kind of like going at with the whole marketing is talking about, building your character, but not being too divisive in the way that you do it.
Yeah. Actually, I haven't seen that Nike one, but you reminded me of sort of two different brands that I think might help for anyone listening. It'll help them kind of get a better idea of what I mean. One that's divisive in a very bad way is Gillette. Gillette had a really ad.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about for sure.
Yeah,
keep going though. Yeah.
I think it was like a year or so ago, and I think the intent behind it was good, but it was divisive in a bad way where their audiences, I think, the majority of their audience is men. That's their target audience, at least, is men. But the ad was designed to sort of almost shame men for their behavior. And at the time, I think a lot of men just didn't agree with what they were putting out, and I don't know how the actual numbers turned out, but I remember a lot of men complained. A lot of men said that they were never using Gillette ever again. So that's bad divisive because you are creating attention and you are starting a conversation, but your target audience, it's a conversation your target audience doesn't want to have and they're not interested in, and it doesn't do the brand or company any good.
Right.
Divisive in a good way, I would say Wendys is a good example, at least in the past. Wendys, their Twitter page was always funny because I don't know. Have you seen Wendys posts where like they'll basically throw shade on other businesses?
Yeah, it's so funny. I love their marketing team. They're good.
Yeah, so that's good divisive because most companies aren't going to go through all that because they're probably too afraid of what might happen.
Yeah,
Wendys is willing to go there. It creates attention. Some people probably hate it because they probably feel like, a restaurant or fast food chain should not be so personal. But I would say the majority of people would probably like it because it's kind of better to be personal. I think nowadays, especially, it sort of personifies Wendys as a brand better. The fact that they're throwing shade out or getting into these sort of conversations or making bold statements about
Right.
other restaurants. So that's good divisive, I would say.
Hmm. So do you think that there's a fine line between being like, if let's say you have an opinion, let's say I'm just making this up, but you don't like dogs, and that's not like a super popular opinion, maybe with like the world as a whole, maybe let's just say the U.S. So like, what's that fine line for you between if you really believe in something, but you know your audience maybe doesn't, or they're going to disagree with you? Is it something that you would still like post or put up if you really believed in it?
Yeah, I would say it's good to post if it's congruent to your brand or business
Hmm.
and doesn't push away your target audience. So if you hate dogs, but you sell cat products, like primarily cat products,
Hmm.
like 99% cat products, I feel like you actually, now, of course, if you kind of make it into a position where it sounds like you hate all animals, and that's a little bit different.
Hmm.
But if you almost sort of brand yourself as the company that likes cats but hates dogs, and they're the
Yeah.
awful dog people, cat people are better, then you'll
Hmm.
probably get a lot of positive responses. You'll probably get, in my opinion, probably a lot more sales because,
Hmm.
I think people sort of divide themselves into cat people or dog people, and you'll automatically build a tribe solely for the fact that at least that brand or business or a person hates dogs
Hmm.
and they're vocal about it. Now, of course, if they have a company that targets dog people and it gets found out that the person in charge hates dogs, and that's probably going to be a disaster.
Right.
But yeah, something like that. I think you have to kind of be careful to really know who your audience is.
Hmm.
And oh yeah, what's that?
How do you break down your audience? I think that's a big question. There's a lot of different routes that people take, and I think there's a lot of ways to go about it. But what's your opinion on breaking down an audience? Like, how do you do it?
Um, so as far as me with my personal brand, I don't really target anyone. I kind of have an idea of what I want to post and what I want the overall brand to be about.
Hmm.
And I sort of let people jump on as they see fit. And then over time, based on analytics, what I see people like or the type of people that are drawn to my content, then I'll sort of speak more to whoever the majority is.
Hmm.
For example, with my personal brand, I post a lot of philosophical things, sort of entrepreneurial business things, but things that are meant to be thought provoking.
Hmm.
Lately, I've been sort of getting into, and I slightly apologize if there's any females in your audience, but I get a little bit into like dating type stuff sometimes,
Yeah.
and almost like comedic, making fun of. Like one thing I do on Facebook a lot is I make fun of people on OnlyFans, girls on OnlyFans.
Yeah. Are you still there? Did it break up?
Oh, sorry about that.
No worries.
Yeah,
Keep going.
but yeah. So on Facebook, and I'm starting to do it on Instagram. I haven't done it too much on Instagram yet, but I make fun of the OnlyFans girls just because I don't have anything against them really, but it's just funny. And my analytics says that like 70% of men, or 70% of my audience is men around the age of like 19 to like 27, 28. So
Hmm.
they'll get it. They'll understand what I'm talking about. Older people might not even know what OnlyFans is.
Yeah.
And I feel like the few females that watch either don't care or they don't mind it. They probably agree, or something like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, so I sort of tailor it based on what I'm seeing, based on who is drawn to my stuff.
Hmm.
I know some businesses start off niching down, which I think is fine. I think that's great, to be honest.
Hmm.
And I would say for them, if they already have an audience in mind that they want to target for any particular reason, kind of going back to the dog, say you have a dog brand, if you come out of the gate saying, I want to target people who are dog lovers, I want them to be from the age of 18 to 26, then you can sort of kind of work backwards and say, what do people who are age 20, age 18 to 26 like? And what do dog lovers like? And then you can kind of put out content or market to them specifically.
Definitely. And I think there's 2 points there. First point is, yeah, like with your brand image, I'm with you there. Like I literally just talk about things that I care about. So like I'll talk about sports cards. I love writing blogs. Like if I could do that all day long, I would. I talk about that a lot, about pursuing things that you're scared of. So like, yeah, with that though, like I think your personal brand maybe is more geared towards describing your personality. Whereas like a company would, be a little bit more broken down per se. And so do you think that like how do you like justify so like you work with gyms, correct? Like with your digital marketing.
Yes.
So like with these gyms, how do you know if your marketing efforts are working? If you're managing their social media or you're taking pictures for them, like when do you know that you're providing a good result for them?
If well, part of it's analytics. If we're
Hmm.
getting good feedback, if people, so I would say as far as analytics go, we don't like to look too much at. I call them vanity metrics.
Hmm.
And that's basically sort of on Instagram. It's like people love the likes and people love
Yeah.
the follows,
Hmm.
and those are totally valuable.
Hmm.
But what we like to look for is comments and share and saves
Hmm.
and shares too. But you can't really, depending on if it's like a story, you don't really get to see all the time who shares it.
Hmm.
But in particular, specifically, we like to look at the saves and the comments because the comments let us know that people are actually looking at the content, assuming it's not a bot or someone just spamming or trying to sell something in the comments. I see that a lot. Um, it lets you get an idea of what people like, and the saves let us know that the content, this specific type of content, is valuable to them.
Hmm.
So they want to keep it and look at it later, or potentially share it, which is always good. Um,
Absolutely.
and in general, I would say what to look out for is just our sales increasing. I know that sounds super like basic, but
No, that's ultimately what they hire you for.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I know like for example, some restaurants. There's a restaurant I'm trying to work with. Um, they might post something,
Hmm.
and it could get a lot of likes because they have a lot of people that like their page.
Hmm.
But if you're posting stuff after about a month, 2 months, 3 months, and it doesn't seem like anyone's coming in from whatever you're posting,
Hmm.
in my opinion, it's a little bit pointless
Hmm.
because you're looking at the vanity metrics and people are clicking the like button, but they're not really engaged
Engaging.
with it. You know, they're not engaged with it, and they're not engaged to the point where they physically buy from you, which is ultimately what the entire purpose of, in my opinion, social media is,
Hmm.
to get the attention so people buy from you.
Hmm. And do you think that, with Facebook ads being such a big thing in the digital marketing space and just marketing in general, do you think that what's your kind of strategy as far as do you think that or just doing organic content can be beneficial for a business long term versus running Facebook ads? When's the right time to get in with Facebook ads? Those kind of things.
So Facebook's a little bit weird, just because I know in the past few years, Zuckerberg and the entire Facebook crew have really been trying to. They're trying to force people to pay if you're a
Hmm.
business page on Facebook,
Hmm.
which I'm not. I'm not. I'm against it for selfish reasons.
Hmm.
I'm not against it as far as the general business strategy. I get it. I feel like they'll do it to Instagram too. I feel like they're kind of doing it to Instagram now to some extent, but I get it. Um, I would say on Facebook, if you have a business and they have at least a little bit of profit, or if you want to try to kickstart some profit, and Facebook's kind of the platform where you choose to be on,
Hmm.
I would personally just say jump into Facebook ads and try to do it in the most cost effective way as possible. So you might not, if you're
Hmm.
not a big brand or big company, of course you don't want to you want to have a budget. I've
Hmm.
met people who have not set a budget on Facebook ads and it has cost them very dearly. Um, so yeah, I would say if you're on Facebook, probably just get into the ads and try to at least get some business from it. And then maybe over time build up and run ads a little bit longer, maybe target certain people a little bit better.
Hmm.
Facebook's definitely great for older people. I feel like if you're a brand new business and if you're specifically looking for older people, Facebook's great. just jump into the ads. If you're looking for mainly younger people, I would say Facebook ads probably work well too. I would say maybe Instagram might be the better option.
Mm-hmm.
And you might be able to use ads. I feel like the effectiveness of ads right now on Instagram are a little bit iffy. They're not as great as far from what I've seen, at least, as
I agree.
Facebook. You might do better off just trying to build conversations and generate traffic more organically.
Mm-hmm.
And it would, of course, depend on the individual company or brand. But yeah, I would say it really depends on who you're trying to target. If it's older people, Facebook. If it's younger people, Instagram is probably the best bet.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't speak about, I know TikTok has ads. I can speak nothing about TikTok ads. We don't do that.
Yeah, I haven't even dabbled in those either.
Yeah. So I imagine TikTok ads are probably great for younger people. I can't say for sure.
For sure. I agree. TikTok's definitely an interest, maybe another topic. But okay, so we're kind of wrapping up here. I like to keep these a little bit short. So, in the digital marketing space, let's say there's an individual who wants to build their brand or they want to build a brand of their company.
Mm-hmm.
What are the 3 things they need to focus on with social media?
I would say if they're building a brand, as far as social media, I would say, so I'd sort of like a 3-step process I think most small businesses and brands should use.
Mm-hmm.
The whole basic 3-step process is first, create a lead magnet. For anyone that's listening that isn't familiar with a lead magnet, it's essentially an item of value that you give in exchange for an email.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say if you're on social media, start with that. Figure out what your audience wants. A great way to do that, and I've done this with our current digital marketing company, and I've done this in real estate. It works super well. Have a lead magnet, and in your story, every once in a while, just advertise it and sort of say, let's say you're in the dating industry. I've seen this a lot in the dating industry. Guys might say, I have this sheet of best text message openers to use during COVID, and they work like a charm. And this is a bad pitch, by the way, but the item is what's important. And they might say, I have a text list. It's amazing. You use this text list. I can almost guarantee that any girl you send this to will respond to it. And it'll give you an 80% chance of getting a Tinder date or a coffee date or whatever you want. And you can put that in your bio, or you can just say in your stories, DM me the word date if you like this. And that's the lead magnet. So people will basically opt in and sort of say, I want this. And you give it to them in exchange for the email address. And you store that into sort of a database spreadsheet. It doesn't need to be super complicated. Depends on the business and what you're trying to do. But basically some area where you can access all of their email addresses, names, and if you choose to do phone numbers or addresses, if your business or brand does any direct mail, some place to store all that. And then when you kind of have that, I would say the best thing to do is sort of create the conversation, nurture the relationship, be personal, not personal in the sense that you're giving away too much personal information, but I would say be willing to be open and consistent with anyone that opted in. The simplest way is through email. If you have their email address, a good email campaign, daily or weekly, works well. If they're on Instagram and you haven't gone through the trouble of putting them in a campaign, if you don't know how, I would say just through DMs, just continuous conversations work well. And then ultimately over time, I would say the simplest thing to do is just once you keep building that relationship, then eventually you can make that sale and sort of say, I have this product or I have this service. Back to the dating thing, I have this, I don't know, I see a lot of people sell courses. If you have a dating course and it's like, hey, I have this, it's $97. I'm making up numbers. But if you're interested, here it is. It's $97. Click this link. It'll take you to this page. And over time, if the relationship's been nurtured properly, people will do it. Especially if they've already expressed interest in whatever it is that you were already providing earlier with the lead magnet.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that's probably the simplest and best way to go through it if you're using social media and you're brand new. Have a lead magnet, get their contact information, mostly an email. That works well enough nowadays still. And then build up a relationship with anyone that opted in for your lead magnet. And then over time, sell them whatever it is that you want to sell them.
Love it. Yep. So you're all focused about nurturing the relationship and less about making the sale right off the bat. I love it.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, I remember it's a weird thing, but I remember in real estate, a lot of people, myself included at the time, you want to get that quick sale and you want people to buy on the spot, and you get sort of frustrated or disappointed when they don't buy the first time. And ultimately what it comes down to is a lot of people just either, realistically speaking, they just can't buy at the moment, or they don't know enough to buy at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think most sales aren't made in the first contact. Most sales, it takes about 4 or 5 follow-ups to really make that sale.
Exactly. Totally agree. That's how it is for sure with my business as well. It takes, like, you just got to keep touching. You got to keep communicating, make sure that you answer their questions and just be there for them and be honest.
Yeah. And I will throw this out here. I don't know if I'm curious to know if you agree on this. I feel like a lot of people, when they first get into it, they have this weird mental barrier of, well, if I follow up with them, they might be upset and they might, hate me, or they might unsubscribe, or they'll block me. And at least in my experience, usually that's not the case. If they unsubscribe, to me, that's fine. It's good to send emails to people that want your emails. But for the most part, I feel like most people will like the emails. They'll be happy to get them. They'll be happy to get the information you send them.
Exactly.
I know myself personally, there have been many times where I totally intended to buy something, and for whatever reason, I got distracted and forgot. And had there been no follow-up email or follow-up message, I would have never bought it because I just wouldn't have remembered to.
Exactly.
Yeah. So.
Well, I think, that's spot on. I mean, as we wrap up here, I have a quick story. Like, one of the best, I agree with you. Like, people are sometimes afraid about following up, but like one of the best compliments I've ever got, which is also it's like a backhand compliment, is one of my clients referred me, and he was telling the referral that, like, the best thing about Collin is he'll annoy you. Like, he'll like constantly be saying, like, oh, we're gonna do this, I'm just letting you know, or like, I have a question about this, or he followed up like 4 or 5 times after our first meet. And like, and he's like, yeah, Collin can, sometimes it's like too much, but the fact is that, he truly cares and he's trying to make an impact and he doesn't want you to feel like you're wasting your money. So I think that's spot on. Like, it's, sometimes, and that's something I dial back a little bit now, but in the beginning that was like, wow, like, okay. So it comes down to that, is like, are you showing and are you genuine about your communication and that your ability to be persistent and work hard? I think that can be a real value to clients.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, hey, Lenny, I really appreciate you being on here. I'm really thankful that you reached out through the DMs. Excited to keep interacting with you on Instagram. Hopefully we can get on another episode. But for anybody interested in checking out Lenny, you can go on his Instagram at Leviticus Rich. It's LEVITICUS Rich. And you can also just go to my own personal page and check him out. I'm following him. He has a lot of value tips there, and then you can see his other social links as well. But yeah, thanks, Lenny, for hopping on with me. And I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you having me on, Collin.
Absolutely. All right. Stay in touch, brother.
Will do. All
right. Have a good one.
You too. Have a good one.
Hey guys, Collin here. Thanks for checking out the podcast today. You can go ahead and follow me on Instagram at collinhofficial, or you can go on YouTube at Collin Hernandez. My company website is klout-marketing.com. You can also see all the episodes on there. Thanks again for giving me a listen, and I'd love to chat with you. So go ahead and DM me, message me, whatever that may be, and we'll see you for the next episode. Thanks. Have a good one.